Sheryl Swoopes once held an undisputed legacy as a foundational figure in professional basketball, yet her recent trajectory has seen that standing systematically dismantled. Her departure from the league's broadcast landscape follows a period defined by a singular fixation on a 22-year-old rookie, a professional obsession that eventually eclipsed her decades of achievement. In Indiana and throughout the WNBA, the transition has been marked by a definitive move away from a veteran figure who appeared unable to reconcile her past status with the league's current reality. The WNBA has now formalized this separation. Swoopes is no longer part of the Indiana Fever broadcasts or any league-affiliated operations. This was not a sudden dismissal, but the culmination of a year-long decline in professional credibility. What began as internal friction evolved into a total professional blackout, leaving Swoopes attempting to navigate a return to a league that has signaled its intent to move forward without her. The breakdown in her professional standing intensified when she began publicly misrepresenting basic facts. During the college season, Swoopes claimed the league's newest star only broke scoring records because she was a 25-year-old competing against teenagers. Public records quickly confirmed the player was 22. Despite the error being a matter of public record, Swoopes refused to issue a correction. When Hall of Fame contemporary Nancy Lieberman attempted to privately address the inaccuracy, Swoopes reportedly severed the friendship rather than acknowledge the mistake. This preference for a specific narrative over factual accuracy drew the scrutiny of WNBA leadership. Swoopes further complicated her position by making unsubstantiated claims regarding the Indiana Fever locker room. She suggested the environment was unstable and that veteran players were seeking departures due to the media attention surrounding the rookie. These claims were contradicted by the team's actual performance and internal chemistry, as players publicly demonstrated a cohesive and positive environment. The discrepancy made it appear as though Swoopes was actively rooting for the team's failure to validate her own public comments, a move interpreted as an attempt to undermine the league's growth. This pattern of behavior mirrors earlier points in her career. In 2016, Swoopes was dismissed from her head coaching position at Loyola University following allegations of player maltreatment. At the time, 10 out of 12 players on the roster requested transfers to escape an environment they described as being governed by fear. This history suggests a recurring difficulty in professional interactions with younger talent. The league appears to have concluded that her historical on-court performance no longer offsets the liabilities of her current professional conduct. The finality of this shift became clear when the Dallas Wings announced their 2025 broadcast team. Swoopes was excluded from the roster and replaced by Nancy Lieberman, the individual she had previously clashed with over factual accuracy. Following this exclusion, Swoopes has recently appeared on major networks like ESPN, offering praise for the Indiana Fever and the rookie she previously criticized. This sudden shift in tone is widely viewed as a calculated attempt to repair a damaged reputation and regain professional standing. Public reception to this pivot remains skeptical. Given the documented history of her recent commentary, the sudden change in rhetoric appears to be a reactionary measure to preserve her career. The power dynamic within the sport has moved beyond the influence of the old guard, as the new generation of players has driven the league to unprecedented levels of visibility. Swoopes spent months criticizing the very momentum that eventually left her professional career sidelined. The league continues to thrive in an era of increased expansion and interest, operating effectively without the controversies associated with Swoopes' recent tenure. While she sought to remain a defining voice in this era of basketball, her actions have instead created a cautionary example of how professional jealousy can compromise a career. Sheryl Swoopes now finds herself on the periphery of a game she once helped build. The professional isolation of Sheryl Swoopes serves as a case study in the tension between the pioneers of the WNBA and the explosive commercial growth of the modern era. For years, the league operated in a state of survival, where the contributions of the old guard were treated as sacrosanct. However, the 2024 season marked a paradigm shift. While league in the blood, in this high-stakes environment, the internal tolerance for veteran broadcasters who prioritize personal grievances over objective analysis has vanished. The league's decision to distance itself from Swoopes was not merely a reaction to her comments, but a calculated move to protect a multi-billion-dollar trajectory from the perception of internal sabotage. This institutional pivot is most visible in the way the WNBA now manages its brand ambassadors. Historically, legends like Swoopes were given significant latitude because their names were synonymous with the sport's history. But as the league's valuation climbed, the requirements for its representatives shifted from mere historical relevance to professional objectivity. When Swoopes used her platform to question the legitimacy of the league's new records, she was not just attacking an individual player, she was attacking the very product the league was trying to sell to global partners. By casting doubt on the talent and age of the new stars, she directly undermined the marketing narrative that the WNBA is currently at its highest skill level in history. The fallout with Nancy Lieberman further illustrated the depth of this professional fracture. Lieberman, a figure of equal or greater historical standing, represented the establishment's attempt to self-regulate. When a veteran of that stature is rebuffed for attempting to correct a factual error, it signals a breakdown in the informal checks and balances that usually keep sports commentary within the bounds of credibility. The league's subsequent decision to replace Swoopes with Lieberman for the Dallas Wings broadcasts was a strategic message. It signaled that the organization values the integrity of the broadcast over the personal brand of any individual, regardless of their jersey hanging in the rafters. Furthermore, the focus on Swoopes' coaching tenure at Loyola University has resurfaced as part of a broader audit of her professional conduct. The 2016 investigation into her program revealed a disconnect between her expectations as a legendary competitor and the modern standards of collegiate player management. The allegations of creating an environment of fear and the mass exodus of players provided a blueprint for the current friction seen in her broadcasting career. It suggests a long-term difficulty in navigating environments where she is not the central authority or the primary focus of the narrative. In a league that is now defined by collective growth and a rising tide mentality, this individualistic and confrontational approach became an operational liability. The shift in media consumption has also played a role in the speed of her professional decline. In previous decades, a controversial comment might fade from public memory, but the current digital landscape maintains an accessible archive of every broadcast slip and social media interaction. The receipts gathered by fans and analysts created a persistent pressure on the league and its sponsors. When Swoopes suggested that players like Lexi Hull or Aaliyah Boston were unhappy in Indiana, she was met with immediate visual evidence to the contrary. The disconnect between her reporting and the reality documented on social media by the players themselves made her position on the broadcast team untenable. It became impossible for the league to justify her role as an expert analyst when her analysis was consistently proven wrong by the subjects of her reporting. The financial implications of this controversy cannot be overlooked. The WNBA is currently negotiating media rights deals that are expected to dwarf previous contracts. Network executives at ESPN, ION, and Amazon Prime Video require a broadcast product that is polished, professional, and supportive of the league's stars. A commentator who uses airtime to litigate personal disputes or spread misinformation represents a risk to those investments. The frostbite Indiana experienced was not just social, it was a professional chilling effect that moved through the front offices of the league's partners. The decision to remove her was likely a prerequisite for maintaining the clean, professional image required for the next level of corporate integration. As Swoopes attempts a professional rehabilitation, the path forward is narrow. Her recent appearances where she has pivoted to praising the Indiana roster are being analyzed through a lens of necessity rather than sincerity. For a reporter or narrator, credibility is a currency that is difficult to mint once the original reserves are depleted. The league has demonstrated that it no longer needs the validation of its former stars to thrive. The attendance records and jersey sales belonging to the new rookie class have created a self-sustaining ecosystem. In this new era, the First Lady of Basketball title carries weight only as long as it is paired with the professional standards of the present. The broader implication for the WNBA is a newfound independence from its past. For years, the league felt a debt of gratitude to the women who played for pennies to keep the dream alive. That debt is now being balanced against the responsibility to the current players and the future of the business. The removal of Sheryl Swoopes is the most prominent example of the league choosing the future over the past. It serves as a definitive statement that while history is respected, it does not grant immunity from the requirements of professional conduct. As the 2025 season approaches, the absence of Swoopes from the sidelines will be a silent reminder that the game has evolved into a global enterprise that prioritizes stability and growth over legacy politics. This evolution reflects a maturing of the sport's infrastructure, transitioning from a grassroots movement to a refined corporate entity. In earlier seasons, the WNBA lacked the luxury of selectivity. Any spotlight was viewed as positive. Now, with the influx of private equity and record-breaking valuations, the league's tolerance for legacy friction has plummeted. The situation with Swoopes highlights a cold truth of the modern sports industry. Historical capital has a shelf life. When that capital is spent on fueling divisive narratives rather than elevating the collective product, the institution will inevitably move to protect its investment. The broadcast booth is no longer a place for personal score settling. It is a vital component of a marketing machine that demands a specific level of narrative synergy. The ripple effect of this professional distancing extends to the locker rooms of the next generation. Younger players, entering a league where they are immediate multimillionaires and global icons, are less inclined to defer to veterans who openly disparage their achievements. The silent consensus among the new elite is that respect is a two-way street. By alienating the very stars who are driving the league's revenue, Swoopes inadvertently positioned herself as an antagonist to the players' own financial interests. As player-led media and independent podcasts continue to rise, the traditional authority of the legend is being challenged by the direct-to-consumer authenticity of the active roster. The league's decision to move on reflects an alignment with this new power structure, prioritizing the comfort and marketability of its active assets over the sensibilities of its retired ones. Furthermore, the analytical demands of the modern fan have shifted. Today's viewers are equipped with advanced metrics and real-time data, making it harder for commentators to rely on eye tests or personal biases to substantiate their claims. When Swoopes' commentary veered into the territory of subjective grievance, it collided with a fan base that prizes objective excellence. The modern WNBA viewer is arguably more informed than at any point in history, and they have little patience for legacy figures who seem out of touch with the statistical reality of the game. This gap in credibility created a reputational vacuum that the league felt compelled to fill with more objective voices, ensuring that the broadcast remains a source of insight rather than a source of distraction. Ultimately, the trajectory of Sheryl Swoopes serves as a blueprint for the identity crisis facing many sports in transition. As the WNBA sheds its image as a niche league and takes its place among the major global sports properties, it is shedding the internal dramas that once defined its tight-knit community. The transition is often painful and requires the removal of figures who were once considered immovable. While Swoopes' on-court brilliance is etched into the record books, her professional afterlife has become a cautionary tale about the dangers of failing to adapt to a changing landscape. The game has grown larger than any one individual, and as the lights get brighter, the shadows cast by personal bias become impossible to ignore. The 2025 season will begin with a clear message. The WNBA is no longer a small family business. It is a global powerhouse, and it expects its legends to act accordingly.